Hi, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Judy Nathans,
And I'm Robert Winters.
and it's still October 21st, 22nd.
22nd.
2 weeks to
We're going
election
back
day.
in time. Wait. No.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, 2 weeks to
Back
election
to
day.
the future.
Yeah. So last quick things on election-related stuff.
Yeah.
Where the candidate forums are happening. Judy, you went to the forum at Porter Square.
Porter Square. Mm-hmm.
Usually one of the better presented forums amongst them every year. So
Well, they were
every
given
election year.
a list of questions, and they could respond to whatever they wanted, and then they chose what they wanted. So at least, and everybody was invited. And some people just were no show. Some people said they couldn't be there, like Alana. I think Tim Toomey. I'm not sure though. I was gonna, but
Actually, a lot of mountains missed quite a few of
Really?
the forums this year. But I mean, there's a political calculation you make. I used to wonder if you stayed home on a forum night and just made phone calls and did cold calling of people, potential constituents. How many votes might you generate compared to what you get out of a
well, it
candidate
depends.
forum?
Some of the forums were the only one where you were kind of invited based on your responses was the Our Revolution, right?
I think some of these groups are
What
very
about
selective.
the Mid-Cambridge one?
It was open to all.
And Alana was there, no?
No, she was
Really?
not, even though it was right in her own neighborhood.
Wow. That
Oh,
must
no.
be-
You're talking about the Mid-Cambridge one.
The
She
Mid-Cambridge-
most certainly
yeah,
was
right.
there. I was
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
the Ward 6.
That's the one where the
I-
tables and you go around.
Yeah. Most of a lot of candidates came to that one, actually, eventually. So a lot of them left early, too.
Was that a good one? Is that
it's
a little
good.
more intimate because you're surrounded
You
by
actually have people
voters, right?
around tables
Yeah.
in there, and
I think that's more
and they're six,
intimate.
they walk around with I have 6 topics, and the
Right.
topics move from table to table.
Right,
The
but
candidates
this
stay
stays,
put.
and then the people go to the topic.
They can follow the topic,
and
or
I
they
think
can
it's
follow
more
the
intimate
candidate.
because it's more back and forth. It's not
It is,
like
yeah.
people just.
There was one table when
Yeah.
the housing issue came around.
Oh yeah.
Where it was Dennis Carlone and Mark McGovern at the same
Oh, my
table,
goodness.
staking out rather divergent points of
Well,
view.
of course, yeah.
And it was getting a little heated, and there were
Yeah.
the people who were saying things, and then it got very heated.
Was there no moderators of any of this
There
stuff?
was a moderator at all of them, but the thing is that sometimes the best thing you can do is just sort
Just
of
let people-
let things
yeah.
play itself out,
Huh. So what else did your impression of that one? Of the whole.
The thing is, I'm not really the best person to ask because
You flit around and talk to people.
I've eaten the forbidden fruit. I've eaten
Oh.
from the tree of knowledge, and I know about so many of these issues better than the candidates. That to me, it's sort of like, yeah, sure. Now I'll tell you the next thing the candidate's going to say. And,
But
and it's
but
like,
there must have been someone either that came. Well, I shouldn't say someone, but did
Yeah.
you feel like some people were really genuine and maybe changed someone's
yeah,
mind?
I
or-
would say so. I mean, I'd say some of them come across well, one-on-one.
Yeah.
And some
Well,
candidates
that's
are very
it.
stiff.
True.
Some basically come in almost like I've got my 3 talking points, and I'm going to push those 3 talking points because
So who paired the candidates at the tables? The
Mid-Cambridge,
organizers?
the organizers.
So who were the other pairings? I'm curious. So they were all
you-
usually people that
you
were
know,
not
it's
on the same side. Who was Stumble with?
I think. I think she was with Elon Levy,
Oh my
Tim
gosh.
Toomey.
Oh, that's right. It was before. There's so many
and,
candidates, right?
Patty
Oh.
Nolan was at that table.
Oh, Patty Nolan.
I
right.
have to say, Patty Nolan actually is very glib. I mean, she's
I know.
very interactive,
She's very energetic.
and energetic, and
Yeah.
so in a setting like that, she's actually kind of an interesting candidate to interact
Yeah.
with. And some other candidates, they say they can come across as really, really stiff. That doesn't mean they're bad candidates or they
Yeah.
would be a bad elected official, but you do get a very different feel about candidates in a setting like this. So anyway, that was kind of an interesting thing. So.
I don't know if they could tape that one because that would be. I guess you could. I don't know. I have to look and see.
It would be
Did
hard.
you see CCTV there?
No, you really can't tape
No,
one
'cause
because
it's
you
the
need
tables,
6 separate cameras going. And
They
recording
definitely were at
segments.
the Porter Square, so you can catch that. It should be online now, but it takes a few days for them to get it together. But
I think
check
it
it
is
out,
available.
yeah.
I'll have to get the link myself,
And
but
I
I'll link to it.
and I
too.
wonder if they're going to be there tonight. I hope so. I'd like to see that
I
one.
wore down. I'm pretty sure they would be.
Yeah, okay.
Right, so
And then there's several. The week. Let's see. The 29th and the 30th. There's forums.
right.
The small property, and then another one. Oh, the
There's the
CEOC.
CEOC one
Yeah, that's
as
always
well.
an interesting one.
Yeah. Actually, just one thing, just
Yeah.
as a little side note, not much to say too much
Yeah.
about it, but I was asked to be a panelist at there's a group called the Cambridge Club, which has actually been around for 140
Sounds
years.
very preppy.
It's not actually, but the thing is there are a lot of long-time people whose names you know because
Yeah.
they've served on boards and commissions.
Yeah.
They've been civically involved. They work for things like Cambridge Community Foundation.
James Roosevelt?
He wasn't there last
No.
night, but it
Okay.
wouldn't
He
at all
probably-
surprise me if he would be there.
Yeah.
You know. We were invited to speak about kind of a reasoned discussion about housing. This is the title.
Was it evenly between men and women?
It was just two of us who were the panelists, and,
Oh,
and the
I see.
moderator, the center person was Bob Simha, who was the former
Yeah.
director of planning for MIT. And then it was
Uh-huh.
Jim Stockard, who was the Cambridge Housing Authority and Affordable Housing Trust. And then I was speaking on the other side.
So
as
no
well.
women panelists or anything?
Not for tonight, but that was
Yeah.
just. I mean, I think whenever they have a meeting, they have different topics.
So
and
you've
it's
gone
just-
to different things, yeah.
No, I've never been to it before.
Oh.
It was very interesting.
So this was on housing,
This particular
and
one
who
was
was
on
asking
housing.
questions, or what was it?
Basically, it wasn't. It was basically here's the topic. I think Bob
Mm-hmm.
Simha set the stage, and then Jim Stockard gave a really interesting history of the way housing, subsidized housing, has been created and funded over the last
Well,
century, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And how it's changed.
Yeah.
And it's fair to say, I spoke more from about 2000 on, and certainly over the Envision Cambridge process, and really focused on that that aspect of things. I mean, we had somewhat divergent points of view, to be sure.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. It was a very interesting experience for me.
Yeah.
But and I did make a point that I think it's kind of unfortunate that when just like in the days of rent control, where how you stood on rent control was like the divider. That decides on whether you're going to vote for somebody or not. It became single issue.
That's what's happened with the
The overlay, even though it's currently tabled, it has very much sort of
Well,
defined things, and maybe. I mean, listen, if it was 2 years ago, 4 years ago, we'd all been yelling about bike lanes. Does anybody notice we haven't talked much
Yeah.
about bike lanes in this
Yeah.
election cycle?
Yeah.
And other years it might have been other issues. So the thing is this has become sort of this overarching,
And that leads
defining
into
thing.
Jan Devereux's
Yeah,
opinion
it
piece,
was
because that's basically what she's
Yeah.
basically saying anyone that voted for that, you really shouldn't vote for them.
No.
that's how I took it. Sorry.
No.
So these are the. These
All right,
are-
so this actually was published in Cambridge Day,
Yeah.
and it was Jan Devereux wrote a piece called "Development Drives Pro-Housing Platform, but it leaves Cambridge addicted to growth."
Yeah.
And there were a lot of things said in it. I think it's very much worth looking into.
Yeah.
I think
You don't think she comes out for that? That's the impression I got.
Well, I think what she's
Wow.
basically is making a point that when you go gung-ho pro even housing development, the thing is that what that will do is skew the way the taxes will be run. So you basically couple it with commercial growth. So if you push one, you're going to get the other.
If
is
you
part
want
of what
low
she said.
taxes on your residences, you're going to have. That's what she's basically.
That's right.
The
So-
trade-off.
That's right.
But did she say to raise the taxes for residences? No.
No.
So.
But she's saying is that's that has long been a kind of a city policy
Yeah.
from every city manager over the last, from certainly Bob Healy, and probably even before Bob too, which is to at least keep some control over the tax rates. Actually, that idea, that concept goes back so far that even in the 1930s,
Yeah.
when the tax rates were going through the roof and business owners and property owners in Central Square were taking floors off their
Right.
buildings
People don't
because
realize that's why
the
there's
taxes
yeah.
were so high.
And I've noticed that in other cities too, by the
Right.
way. Yeah.
So the primary, when the planning form of government was introduced, everybody focuses on the proportional representation elections, but the real issue that was driving that was the out of control tax rates and the ability to even pass a budget. Because they were pretty much, there was a lot of political patronage, create jobs for everybody. It was the Depression after all. And when people were voting for a new form of government, it was in part, to sort of control things a little bit better, have a better managed city so that taxes were not running out of control. And I have newspaper articles from like 1949 where the Cambridge Civic Association is pretty much saying, we've had our charter in place now for, 8 years, and look how we've actually managed to successfully control taxes so that, people can afford to live here. So that was always been kind of a background concern. So anyway, that's at least one of the aspects that Jan Devereux's letter addresses is that if you promote, just if you arbitrarily and indiscriminately vote in favor of densify, develop more and more and more, then you basically are buying a lot more commercial growth along with the residential growth, and vice versa, mind you. It's kind of like a spiral. In other words, I think as it's fair to say, commercial development in Kendall Square, which is by and large most people feel is a good thing, but it also brought people into Cambridge who then want to live here, which then drives the need for more housing, which then drives rents and purchase costs up and whatever. So now I don't know that the answer is you just turn the clock backwards, but I thought it was a very thoughtful piece that she wrote.
Yeah, but I don't see any real solutions in it. Not that she had to offer solutions, but she just wants people to think holistically when they go to the ballot box. And I'm just thinking, I still think it's a subtle thing, like.
Well, she wasn't particularly subtle when she's saying that
I meant unsubtle.
Right.
I guess.
If there's the ABC group that just says, vote for us because we are the housing slate.
No, but she was referring to the counselors that voted on it, not just slate. Right. So I'm just saying. Right. Because I read a lot of the comments too. Yeah. Did you read the comments?
I did read the comments as well.
I mean, the first few were actually kind of critical, and then it got to ones that were very supportive.
If you actually look at the record of the individual counselors, and granted, some of the counselors who serve right now haven't been on the council for super long. So there are several first-timers, one-termers now. But if you go back and you look, whether you're looking at way back from Tim Toomey and Denise Simmons, and onward through McGovern and then more recently people and Kelly, whatever. I don't think, and I think Jan says it in this, is there's nobody is anti-housing, and everybody's been.
Oh, of course not. Well, anyone that framed it that they're anti is crazy. Anyway.
It is crazy.
I mean that wasn't the issue.
But that's the
I think
political
it was just
rhetoric that's being played out right now.
Right, but when I would talk to different people who were against it, and I know you are, but some of the things they said just were so unfounded. I mean, it's going to be horrible design and this and that. And meanwhile, I've been walking around Cambridge and I've been noticing, some of them are properties maybe they built or maybe they were old housing. I don't know, but there's a lot of pockets of some really nice stuff going up by Just to Start, and I mean those are the only people I know, Just to Start and HRI. But
and every one of those are built within the confines of current zoning.
Yeah, but they're only in certain places. They're in East Cambridge, and they're not.
You build them where, and that'll still be the case. Is that all of these agencies will still continue to focus
across
on
the country, there are Minnesota, Minneapolis. They are looking at the whole single-family zoning and trying to change that.
Which is virtually a non-issue in Cambridge, because the total amount of zones that are single-family in Cambridge is
all I'm
very
saying
minimal.
is that this isn't just unique to us. People are trying to figure out how to expand housing in areas that are used to having more space, more this, more that.
But that conversation really is properly understood when you think about cities which are fundamentally low-density cities where they're being very exclusionary and keeping out multifamily homes. Cambridge is actually, among cities of 75,000 or more, is the fifth most dense city in the United States of America. So to make the case that somehow Cambridge is this exclusionary zoning territory where we don't allow multifamily homes is absurd.
No, but when you see boxes going up in Cambridgeport that are for-profit places, and then you say, well, what if that box was somewhere out in West Cambridge? What's the difference?
Well, first off, my feeling about this is that almost all housing that was ever built in Cambridge was, quote, for profit, including the one I live in. It was built in 1912 before there was even zoning. And it wasn't being done as a giveaway.
Yeah, all right, but I'm just saying, if you're going to have those boxes, let them at least be mixed income or something, instead of selling for $1.5 million each.
Well, that's what inclusionary zoning tries to address.
But then if you have inclusionary zoning, you're going to have big development companies making this, because it's 10 units or more. It's going to be for-profit companies, and they're going to build what they want because they've got the inclusionary zoning. And is that necessarily a good solution? You're going to have more. Those are the developers that everyone's complaining about.
Well, I mean,
I think it's very complicated.
I will not remain singularly focused on the city of Cambridge as the be-all, end-all of all solutions.
No, we provide 15%.
We're about 15%, and the standard for quote, snob zoning is about 10, so we're way above it already. And if you look to Somerville, which is our neighbor to the north, they're at about 7 point something percent subsidized housing. So
Well,
we're
maybe
double
because
them.
all of their housing to begin with didn't go up in so much in $5 million house. I don't know.
Oh, but it has now.
It has now, but
Oh,
I'm just
yeah.
saying historically.
But historically, Cambridge didn't either, right? It's still a
Did
relatively
they have a
recent
Brattle
phenomenon.
Street area? Did
Uh,
they have in Somerville?
No, they had nicer parts of Somerville.
Yeah,
East Somerville was probably
okay.
not the tonier part of town, you know. And then there were other ones up on a hill, you know. It was, but you know, it was built pretty much as a pretty dense city. It was even dense in the late 19th century. It was a pretty dense place. So
Not as many trees.
yeah, in fact, there was a movement in the late 19th century in Somerville to build parks and things because there was so much density and there was housing built right up to the curbs on like every block in Somerville. So Floss Park, for example, which is on, I guess, the McGrath Highway going up into Somerville. I guess it's not called, it's probably not called McGrath at that point. It's probably called Fellsway. That was actually built in response to there being an overdense city to create some open space for the city of Somerville. And that goes back over a century that was the mindset for that.
Wow.
You know, it was viewed as unhealthy to not have resources like that at the time. So, but anyway, if you look at some of our neighbors, you know, their subsidized housing ratios are in the 3% range and 4%
They don't
range,
have
whatever.
Kendall Square. They don't have biotech
I know,
community.
I
They don't
know.
have the industry. They don't have Harvard. They don't have MIT.
Right, but the thing is that if you're arguing for the fact that if the notion that we have, because we have Kendall Square, then the argument would be why we should be providing housing for the people who work in Kendall Square, which is
Well, we are. We're building
Right, that
Market
would be-
Central for
Well, that's right.
$3,000 a
So-
month,
and
I'm just saying.
So those things
I don't
go
think
on
those
the
people
market at
have
those
problems.
rates. Right,
And
but
how
the point
it-
is that
yeah.
you know, building the housing, even market rate housing, is exactly what those people are looking for. So if you want to meet the demand that was caused by the growth of Kendall Square, that's what you should be building.
That isn't what this is about. That wasn't about meeting the demand of Kendall Square. It was trying to meet the demand for people who can't afford to live here.
Well, that was the overlay. But the thing is
Right,
that in
okay,
terms
but-
of what's driving the demand, really.
Oh, yeah,
is
and
that.
they're
the
still
thing is-
doing it, yeah.
And because you didn't have
Yeah.
the housing to support those people, they were displacing people in the housing that
I know.
would otherwise have been available for people
But,
with
you know,
lesser
you wouldn't
means.
have, what, 28,000, 29,000 per pupil expenditures if you didn't have all of this money coming in from developers. I mean,
That's a whole nother discussion
I
about
know,
why
but-
28,000 per
well,
student.
because they can.
Not just because they can,
And they
because there
have-
are a
yeah.
lot of out of placement students for which you know there are some students which actually cost $100,000 or more.
Hey, I'm not saying it's
cost.
bad because I think people can't just, right, there's like special needs, there's,
Right.
you've actually looked at the figures for out of placement students?
Yes, I have. Not lately, but I know that has historically been one of the real drivers.
And you know,
of the high
sometimes who get
costs.
those placements are people they're not poor.
There are people actually,
that they know
some
how to
people
sweep
who
the
will
system,
who
yeah.
couldn't get access to those resources if they lived in other towns.
I
so
know,
they
they
choose
move
to
here.
live
No,
in
it's
Cambridge
true,
because
yeah.
they will have access to those
No,
resources.
I know someone that moved from Florida
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Littleton to
Oh,
do
yeah.
that.
It's exactly right. So you
Yeah.
know, so in other words,
to know
it's
how to
not
work
just
this.
because we're lavishing wonderful resources
No,
on all
but
students.
if you talk to some parents of kids, they say, you know, where is this money going? You know,
Right. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
But it's something I think people should talk to some of the school committee incumbents to really get a fuller perspective.
Another
about
reason
that.
to, pay attention to that election.
Definitely. Now another thing that was we didn't talk so much about what's on the council agenda, but there was something
It's
I
only an
thought-
hour and a half.
Right, but one thing that was I think interesting for me because it's sort of watching something unfold over a decade or more.
Oh, the Green Line.
Green Line extension. Okay, so it was interesting because on Sunday I led a walk in North Billerica along the remnants of the Middlesex Canal. We had 60 people on the walk,
Good for you.
which was great.
Glad I wasn't there.
But that was the
It's really
transportation.
long, 60 people hurting
That
them.
was like the big dig of the
Yeah.
18th century, end of the 18th century. So we did that. So then on the way home, I didn't take the highways back, so I actually ended up sliding down in through Medford into Somerville. And I actually hadn't seen the progress that is currently being made on the Green Line extension.
In Somerville?
And in Medford,
In Medford.
West Medford. If you go around where Tufts University is, for example, down
Yeah.
where the railroad tracks are right next to the Tufts,
Yeah.
well, I'm sure some Cambridge Post would be horrified because a lot of trees were taken down
Oh, yeah.
to make room for the Green Line extension. But they're putting up sound barrier walls and trackage and towers and stations. And
So are
it's
they
happening.
starting there more, or are they starting
No,
all
no.
over? It's all over,
It's
right?
all over, but
Down by Leechmere,
they did the Leechmere. A lot of that work happened a while. I think they have the bridge in place over the railroad tracks, over where the train yards are, back of East Street, close to where the North Point area is. Because they had actually removed an old bridge called the Red Bridge in order to make it possible. I think that's actually in place now. So, this thing that we talked about and wondered whether it was actually going to happen is absolutely happening.
Yeah.
I don't remember right now what the estimated date will open, or whether they're going to open it up all at once or
Probably
sequentially, stop by
stages, yeah.
stop, right? Starting with the extension to Brick Bottom and so on and so on and so on. But
Fascinating,
and there's also going to be a side branch terminating in Union Square, Somerville.
But meanwhile, they're having so many problems with the Orange Line and other places that it's getting,
Right, but the thing is that there was a commitment made. I think when Richie Rossi was city manager, it was a commitment from Somerville, Cambridge, Medford, and North Point developers to help assist in the funding for the Green Line extension to help get it on track to make it happen. So one of the expenditures that was City Council approved on yesterday, Monday, was for the next, I think it was the next
so
5
it's in
million.
installments, right?
Yeah, so there are these sort of points where when you meet a certain point of the process where funding is made then available. So there was another 5 million expenditure from Cambridge direct. Somerville's doing the same and Medford doing the same. I think Somerville's actually may be paying even more because they actually getting more stations.
Right.
More. It's going to
it
will benefit them more.
Right.
I mean, the Green Line extension for us is really, we already have Leechmere, and that's just going to move to the other side of the road.
Right.
But the thing is that also supports. If you have people who are working, for example, down in East Cambridge or Kendall Square, but they want to live in Medford, then this gives them a very easy way to commute in without driving. So it's a real benefit for Cambridge just for that.
They're developing Suffolk Downs. I'm wondering, what's the transit out there? Is that the Blue Line?
It goes out around there, and there'll be a redevelopment.
That's where
there.
Amazon. That was one of the proposed things.
So much got derailed, so to speak, by the big dig, literally derailed.
Right.
That there were commitments, and not just commitments, hard commitments, but ideas for transit expansion, reaching further and further out in multiple directions. That just the funding wasn't available during
Except
the big
that
dig
north-south
period.
thing that never happened, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's true. But in the long view, and this is interrelated to the housing issue as well. For example, if you had a really more of a rapid transit extension going up through Lynn and Revere, whatever, then living in some of those towns becomes really great. Yeah. You just hop on the T and
a lot of people do live there, though. I know a lot of. They've built a lot of big housing in Revere.
I remember when they were
actually the Blue Line is right near there. That's not bad.
It is not bad, right?
So.
But the thing is, we got to go further. I mean, honestly, wouldn't it have been great if the Red Line didn't stop at Alewife, but went through Arlington, Lexington, all the way out to Bedford?
Yeah.
Would not have been great.
Well, there's a train, but yeah.
And one day maybe it will, but
well, there are trains. There's the line that goes.
The corridor of the Minuteman Bikeway is is there as a potential corridor for transit extension one day.
You're talking about subway versus commuter rail, because there is commuter rail.
In an ideal world, what should happen is some of the commuter rail routes should be transformed into rapid transit. And with frequent service, not just the occasional service.
Isn't there talk like that?
There is talk about it, but the thing is that talk is one thing, money is another thing.
Well, that's always comes down to that.
Yeah, and and some of these projects aren't super easy. Like if you if you had a notion about taking something like the Fitchburg line or the line that goes out to what's the one that goes out to, the ones that come either the North Station or to South Station. Some of these ones have a lot of grade crossings as you go further and further out, and there's just no way you could do rapid transit with grade crossings. So you would have to be raising or lowering tracks or otherwise reconfiguring. It's not
in my
cheap.
lifetime.
Well, maybe
I don't know. No, not in my life. Maybe my kids' lifetime.
But there's a lot of factors and hardship now, including the difficult access to housing that may help to drive a lot more interest in doing better transportation networks.
They're not going to build high rises in Concord, but anyway, that's another story.
Right, but you may not need high rises in Concord, but
No, but even
But
there's a lot of.
I have
If
always.
you think this was a hard sell in Cambridge,
I have always felt
You know.
that every city and town in Massachusetts should have an
should do their
obligation
thing.
to have at least
Well,
one
good for you.
apartment house district.
yeah.
And
Oh, I
that
think
doesn't
they
mean,
do.
And that doesn't
I
mean
think they do.
25-story buildings.
Well, they
It could
do.
be,
I mean, I think Lincoln does. I think Lexington
some
does.
do.
But
Some definitely do.
Arlington definitely. Well, Arlington.
yeah. Of course, some of those projects were built because of Chapter 40B.
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
snob zoning.
Right.
It's basically because there were some of those towns would have been.
Right.
They had to be brought kicking and screaming
Right.
into providing some of that housing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but anyway, the bottom line is that the metropolis cannot stop at Boston, Cambridge. It's got to grow out a bit, because if we're gonna have more people here, you got to grow the city a bit. Physically grow it out, and that means providing some transportation to serve it, and that is absolutely interrelated to some of the housing issues.
And I just want to bring up that I attended the Head of the Charles. I know you went on your walk in the Head of the Charles. I was a volunteer. They tried a new effort to do composting and stuff. They need like 100 volunteers versus 50, but it was very gratifying. My daughter took a photo of me, and I'll send it to you. She called it the green old deal.
Perfect.
Isn't that perfect?
Absolutely
and
perfect.
I said, I don't even mind that.
Right. Well, how many times did I run into you up in Lowell at the little
Oh,
folk
God,
festival?
yeah,
I said,
yeah.
"Hey, look who it is!
I know.
Running the recycling
Not doing that
facility.
anymore,
It's Judy."
but for other reasons. But it was great. The weather was great, and it's such a volunteer effort. 1,000 volunteers, and I know, and it is our river. And even though it's now on the Boston side, it's a wonderful event. So
yeah, and you got some decent weather, so that was
it was
good.
great,
Yeah,
and
so.
it's just.
So anyway, research them
ne-
candidates.
Yeah, and we'll be here next week, and then the week after we're probably
we'll
doing
see about
election
that.
stuff. But we'll
See
let you
ya.
know. Bye.